let's go ahead and get things started this evening. We have a special meeting of the City Council. Now call it to order. Mrs. Hoffman, if you can take roll, please.
Ms. Elmore? Present. Mr. Cahill?
Present.
Ms. Kyle?
Here.
Mr. Skidmore? Mr. Hermes? Mr. Doan?
Present.
Mr. Meyer?
Present.
Ms. Skidmore? Ms. Nicely?
Present.
Mr. Nipper? Ms. Reckers?
Here.
Ms. Jasper Lucas?
Here.
Thank you very much. We have legislation on the agenda. Mr. Gatlin.
So an ordinance modifying Section 3102 of the Erlanger Code of Ordinances and Ordinance 2156 related to compensation of elected officials. What has been struck through is what's being deleted, which is the sum of $3,000 per year is being changed to $4,468.20 per year. What's being removed is the $50 per regularly scheduled meeting, and also the salaries going indexed to the CPI. So it will now just be a flat fee per year of $4,468.20.
Okay, do I entertain a motion? Mr. Meyer, Ms. Reckers, any discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Skidmore? Ms. Kyle?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Jasper Lucas?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Nipper? Mr. Doan?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Nicely?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Meyer? Ms. Reckers?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Elmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore?
Motion carried. Okay, do I entertain a motion that we adjourn? Ms. Reckers, Ms. Jasper Lucas, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. We'll go ahead and start our City Council caucus meeting. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight. First is fairness human rights legislation. Councilwoman Jasper Lucas and Councilman Cahill, if you'd like to take the floor.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm going to read this because I don't do well on the fly. As many of you know, I proposed the creation of a race relations and diversity task force in January of 2021. Councilman Cahill co-chaired that with me, and our task force met monthly until February of this year. One of the initiatives of the task force that we focused on was the drafting of a fairness ordinance. We finalized a draft in January, and that was emailed to council members by Mr. Gatlin. Based on feedback from individual council members, it was determined that a majority was likely not going to support passing a fairness ordinance, so we opted to propose a fairness resolution instead. I understand the opposition to the ordinance. I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but I do understand it. You've been given a draft of the fairness resolution. I believe it's important that council support this resolution to show our community where we stand on racism and inequality. Yes, legal protections exist already as outlined in the resolution, but we all know that racism and inequality also still exist. And I believe that this resolution is a step in the right direction for moving Erlanger forward to combat racism and inequality. I would also like to propose adding something to the website, the city's website, with links to the EEOC and the Kentucky Human Rights Commission, and maybe even like the Northern Kentucky Bar Association or something that would give people a resource for hiring an attorney to just direct people to contact these entities if they have a complaint, and that's really just to be more of a resource than anything. So that's kind of the reasoning behind the history, I guess, behind how we arrived at the resolution. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Tom Cahill might have some things to say as well.
Yeah, so just looking at this, when I started looking into this and being part of this committee, I think it was really important for the task force that we understood what was going on. So I think you realize this, and Ms. Nicely, you should too, that Erlanger-Elsmo school system is the most diverse school system in the state of Kentucky. So when you're looking at that, when we look at people that don't look like us, don't talk like us, do not have those same things, those legal protections sometimes aren't there. That's one of the reasons we were looking at this type of ordinance, to help those people when those issues came up. Because if you look like us, talk like us, that's great. If you have enough money, then you can make sure those rules are being followed and those laws are being followed. If you don't, you need to have some resources available. In the city of Erlanger, having Erlanger-Ellesmere school system in our backyard should have that ability to protect those people and help them out when they have issues and concerns. That's all I really have to say about it. So any questions or concerns?
I wanted to mention one more thing that's in here. I don't know if you all are familiar with the Crown Act. It's kind of been a nationwide movement to basically ban hair discrimination. And this was something that I really was not familiar with, but it is to basically ban discrimination for hairstyles that are commonly associated with ethnicity, such as, I don't want to mispronounce them, braids, locks, twist, and covering related to a person's birth or place of birth or ancestry, and natural texture hair. There's, like I said, it's been a national movement to pass these bans on a state level. It's been proposed several times, and Kentucky has not yet did not pass this last session, but actually came closer to passing. Some cities have actually passed an ordinance banning that, and that is included in the resolution. More of just a way of encouraging employers and other entities that have dress codes to make sure that that language is somehow included in their dress code, so that those types of things those types of hairstyles are protected. So that's in our resolution as well, that we would be supporting that.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll add that to the pieces of legislation for next month. All right, next item on the agenda is these two kind of coincide.
That's what I was going to say.
Is that
That
all
we can
right?
probably hit 2 and 3 together.
All right.
Just to make sure we're looking at this. So looking at this from the Houston Road, or actually the Cherry Hill subdivision and the truck issue, as you know, this has been a concern. I've been corresponding with one of the residents on that road for the last year or two about this. We did have one incident where we had power down. We've had some damage to cars. But if you look at it from a standpoint of the semi-traffic there, you're having damage to the roads overall in general. These roads were not meant for that. And if you look at what's going on for the fall of 2022, Houston Road is going to have some work being done on it. And probably at that point, we're going to have to shut down that part of Erlanger Road, number one. Number two, the semi-damage to Sycamore and Erlanger Road has caused deterioration. At this point, if you look at what happened in Erlanger Road, we've shut down 2 sections of that already. We've already had to repair damage at a cost of $67,000 to that section connecting to Sycamore at this point. So that's a big expense for us. You start adding those semis, even 1 or 2 a month or 3 a month, that's going to cause more problems, more slippage, more damage. And that road may have to be shut down anyway as we get to that point where we cannot repair it anymore. Also, looking at the deterrents that we have up there, we've paid $1,600 about every quarter in order to replace those deterrents. That's going to be a pretty big cost for us. You're also looking at issues with the curbs and the boulders that we put in place to narrow that road. So we're looking at probably right now about $30,000 we spent on trying to control this semi-traffic and control the problems that are going on at Erlanger Road. When we're looking at also that area, Cherry Hill many years ago had asked us about a park, putting that in an area. And Erlanger Road, with the areas that we shut down right now, have been designated as a potential for a linear park out there. And looking at that future site, there may be a potential, just go ahead and do we look at this, shut this down now, take care of this, figure out what's going on, make sure we're not causing more damage to the road, causing more costs to the city of Erlanger for repairs and damage that are occurring. Also, when we look at this issue and concern, is that with that, we know we can limit that semi-traffic, we can take care of that problem with this closure type there. On April 28th, we are going to have the opportunity from 5 to 7. There's a flyer that's going to be out. There's signs that are going to go out onto the road, on the roadways for these folks to be able to come to a forum from 5 to 7 to be able to discuss their concerns and issues with the closure of the road. So we can talk to them about that at that time and see what's going on. Everybody's invited. We're going to have some snacks, some water, things like that for them. And I think it'll be at the top of the street. Is that correct, Mr. Gordon? Yeah. So that's what we're kind of looking at. That's kind of some of the information I want to provide the council tonight, and just get your thoughts on that.
And we've already put it up on social media, so it's already posted and ready to go. Any other questions? Ms. Jasper Lucas?
I drove over there tonight before I came here just to kind of get a visual for myself of where all this, where the trucks were driving. And just my own observance in 15 minutes of being there, it seems to me, and obviously this was a certain time of day for 15 minutes, but most people from that neighborhood that are using that road, it's just people from that neighborhood who are kind of using that as a quicker way to get out without having to drive through the whole neighborhood. Is that the sense that we're getting in general?
So,
Yeah, we believe it's probably a very small portion of that. PD has done they've had a sign up there for a while for us. In the February and March numbers, it's averaging about 270 cars a day. That's both ways. So half of that one way and half of that back. So it's a pretty low use in for a city street. That's pretty low. I mean, it's less than 300 a day that they've been doing the last 2 months. So, we don't think it's going to be a huge impact. Obviously, we wanted to reach out to the citizens and see what they said. I would think the majority of the people that use it are from here north. Is probably this section. Talking to first responders, and if you look at it logically, it really isn't faster for us. I mean, if you see where you're driving down Houston Road, going through Erlanger Road or Old Erlanger Road, and then up the very steep Sycamore, even the fire engines really shouldn't be going up there. It's just too steep. So we're talking seconds difference than going in Cherry Tree. The only thing that it'll add is probably a little bit more traffic on Cherry Tree, an extra 300 cars a day, which again isn't a really large amount. So the other portion to kind of talk about, and Tom and the staff and everybody has met to discuss this previously, but there is a bridge on this road that we own. Any semi that goes over it exceeds capacity. So at some point, we're going to have an issue with that bridge, and as we all know, bridges are expensive. The semi-traffic did escalate the issue that we had of the slippage. It definitely sped that up that we had to repair last year. And it's just a typical city street that we're going to have to be utilizing, or maintaining, I should say, if we continue down this path. And we all know we've done a lot to try to keep semis out, and most of it hasn't worked.
Yeah, we don't believe any other deterrents will work. Even if we put something that would limit that, I think they would still ignore it to go through that. There's, Ms. Jasper Lucas, as you saw, there's a lot of signs saying don't go this way. We've narrowed the road. They're damaging that property too. That's going on. And one of the things on the 28th we are going to have Public Works there. We're going to have fire and police there too to answer those questions that people have. Chief McQuarrie, Assistant Chief McQuarrie has actually put out there, some information and data, and the difference between that going around and that way is seconds. So it's not going to cause a great harm or issue or concern for that area for emergency response. Yes.
I drove back there a couple weeks ago, and I actually agree with what you're saying. I mean, it is a mess back there, and that was just a little bit of driving like Jennifer said she did, and I did a couple weeks ago, and you can definitely tell there's some problems back there. So I totally agree something needs to be done sooner than later. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right. Thank you, Tom. Well, that's it. Do I entertain a motion that we adjourn? Ms. Reckers, Mr. Nipper, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Have a good evening.